calling to order the regular meeting of the Police Commission on Monday, December 4th, 2023 at 5:04 p.m. Let us start with the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Got the wiggle chair. That was almost embarrassing.
I would like to introduce our town engineer and head of public works, Tom Roy.
Oh,
I think everybody knows Tom. And we also have our interim town manager, Lee Erdman here.
Oh.
And they are going to discuss the facilities. They're going to present, so I'm turning it over to you.
All right, well, thank you. We've met a couple times on this. Originally, we looked at doing a review with an outside architecture firm. It was very expensive. In talking with the chief, we have some internal skill set, so we tried to use our internal skills to do as much as we could and just supplemented a few areas with the outside architectural consultant. We looked at putting a modular out back behind the building. It would be roughly 24 by 64, which would get you about 1,550 square feet. Cost for a modular is going to be in the neighborhood of $200,000. And the question is, what are you going to do with that space? It adds space, but is it good space or not? The best alternative would be to essentially take the gym, put the gym out in the modular, move the roll call room to the gym space, move the records room to the roll call room. All in, you'd be looking at about a $300,000 project with moving everything around. And I think as the chief could tell you, it's still not exactly what he's looking for. The other option that we looked at was doing a bump out or extension to the building between records and the Sally Port. Sorry, squeeze over here. Okay. So just kind of orientate yourself. This is Hot Meadow Street down at the bottom. This is the main parking lot here. Central School would be up behind us. This is the existing Sally Port. This is the existing records area. So we would be looking to add this space here, which is 1,064 square feet. Okay. It gives us the opportunity to have an interview room coming off the main corridor, currently where the new office for our lieutenant is. So it does gain us that. We would be able to build a couple offices where records is currently situated, potentially 3 walled offices and a couple desk setups. And then we would have a significant space for records and or other storage or other use. The problem is the cost estimate to do this is in the range of about $850,000. Significant. The other thing we looked at is building upon this. You've already paid for a roof and you've paid for foundations. If you were to take this 1 level addition and put it up 3 levels, you would now get that same 1,064 square feet on the main level and on this level as well. So there's the potential then that the town could make use of that additional space for, I'm going to call it an appropriate sized main meeting room, getting us some additional conference space within the main level. And it would also allow for some additional office space for the Board of Education. That would come in at a cost of just under $2 million. So you could say that you get 1 level for free, okay? Again, that's a significant project. We would have to make sure that it met with State Historic Preservation Office requirements because this is a historic building. We think we would be good on that because it's the backside of the building. It's already adjacent to where we have an additional structure. These costs are very, very high level preliminary costs. I like saying this would be $1 million. We'd be looking at about $2 million, $2.25 to do the 3 levels. So those are the options we came up with. And again, it's very difficult because you're trying to fit in desirable spaces and desirable relation of spaces within an existing building. So.
And Tom, what's the architect's comment about the value?
Chief, can you keep that map up there? Sorry, go ahead, Lee.
Yeah. What did the architect say about the relative value of this kind of addition?
It wasn't, in their opinion, the best space. It was very challenging because we're relocating the electrical transformer. If it was bright and sunny and daylight out and you look down in the windows behind you, it's that very ugly metal box which all of the electrical power for the entire building comes through. We have to relocate. That's going to be about $175,000, $200,000 right there just to move that. That box then is also still going to interfere a little bit with some of the parking around the building. So this solves a problem, but it doesn't do it well. It solves a problem, but it does it at a very high cost.
Do any of these provide additional locker space? If we have more officers, we need to provide the locker space.
No, no.
And Tom, the modular goes in the same location, is that?
No, the modular would come out the back of the building, basically
Yeah.
on the central school side. We would probably construct that into the slope back there.
And is there a one level and modular plan that gets us about $1 million plus the extra space? Could you do both?
I would say at this point, we could certainly investigate that. We haven't at this point. Again, the modular, the challenge is you're walking outside every time you go to hit.
Yeah.
And you get into that, all of a sudden, that staff that you have working in there is very distant, even though you're on the same site footprint.
Sure.
There's no windows in there either.
Oh, we'd have windows out the back. But again, you do have challenges. If you go to the 3-level option, some of the offices on the first floor, which currently have windows, would lose their windows. Again, there'd be a lot of finesse, which is why I like to round those numbers up, because we'd be working to make it the best and most comfortable space we could.
Two other things I'd like to add, if I may. First is that we undertook this analysis because in the Certus report, it was identified that we don't have sufficient space presently, particularly for records. Nick has come up with an alternate plan with high-density filing and also digitization, and maybe moving some files off-site that could provide some short-term relief related to records, but records only. The second thing is, Nick and I have been working on the long-term plan for a separate police facility, which we believe is what the town needs at some point. We've gone as far as confidentially identifying 4 potential sites here on Hot Meadow for a separate police facility. We're not talking publicly about those sites because all of them would include the taking of some private property, which would of course add to the cost. You're aware that Tecton, right, did an initial space needs analysis identifying the need for 27,700 square feet for an appropriate standalone police facility. We've put a plug into the preliminary CIP plan that's going to be going to the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance for their meeting on December 19th, showing $30 million for a freestanding police facility in years 13 to 20 of the plan. That's when we can fit it in, somewhere in there. We know that many other towns have built freestanding police facilities over the years. 2 that I'm familiar with, Farmington and Wethersfield, built freestanding facilities in the early 2000s. Farmington about 26,000 square feet, and I think Wethersfield about 27,000 square feet. The current space that police occupies is about 18,700 square feet. So it's not much of a jump to go from 18 to 27, about a 50% increase. At some point, the town is going to need that. The town's going to continue to grow. The needs for police are going to continue to grow. So in my estimation, it's just a matter of when. It's not a matter of if. So I hope to encourage a discussion among our policy boards about let's plan for this. When do you want to do it? How much of a priority is it in comparison with the many other infrastructure priorities we have in town? an intergenerational community center, and several schools that still need significant improvement. So we've undertaken this initial analysis to look at what can be done in the short term, short to intermediate term, and none of the options are really, in our view, cost effective. The other downside is anything we do now for the short or intermediate term probably pushes off further when we're going to do a freestanding police facility. But we look forward to your input and questions and suggestions about how we proceed to address this issue.
I'm concerned that 13 years feels like a very long time. I don't know that we have 13 years in the current space.
Yeah.
So, while I agree that it would be fantastic to have a new facility that accommodates all of our needs, I don't know that we can wait 13 years.
You may not be able to. Two other issues in that regard. I put it in year 13 because we can't fit it in years 1 through 12 for two major reasons. Number one, I felt an intergenerational community center should be a priority. And then number two, the Board of Education is asking $100 million to knock down Squadron Line School and build a new elementary school. That's the largest school in town. It may or may not be the most cost-effective solution. The superintendent of schools and I have discussed this. We're putting that plug into the preliminary plan to begin the discussion. We both recognize that we're going to have to hire architects and engineers to look at least three options, right? One is knock the school down, build a new one, plus or minus $100 million, get 20% reimbursement from the state. Option two, renovate as new, which is what we're doing with Latimer, get a 35% reimbursement from the state. On a $100 million project, that's $15 million. Option three, follow the plan that Tecton developed back in 2019, where they developed a multi-year capital improvement plan for school facilities, and they identified the capital needs for the Squadron Line School. So option three, don't know if it's still feasible, but if it is, just do those capital projects and spend much less than you'd spend by renovating the school as new or building a new one.
Should the powers that be, the policymakers, decide to go for option three
Yes.
and follow the original Tecton plan from 2019,
Yes.
would adding the multi-generational center to a police department as a community space,
Yep.
A, get the police department sooner in the capital improvement plan?
Yep.
And B, would that be a way to kind of hit, it seems like, more goals in
It
one fell
it certainly
swoop?
would. If instead of spending $100 million for a school, if we can get away with, for purposes of discussion, I don't remember the numbers from the Tecton plan, but say it's $25 million, right? Then that frees up a lot of capital dollars, a lot of bonding dollars to do an intergenerational community center and a freestanding police facility or a combined facility if the community decides that's preferable.
I know at one point Tecton mentioned the idea of having the intergenerational center somehow attached to the police department, which kind of promotes our mission of community policing and introduces a good relationship between a lot of the members of the community that need,
Yeah,
should
certainly.
have relationships.
It certainly does. The reason I separated them is I know there have been preliminary plans, conceptual plans that have been developed to put the intergenerational community center out at Simsbury Farms,
Oh, okay.
right? Just preliminary, just conceptual, no decisions made. In talking with Nick, he would prefer to be in the center of the town, somewhere in a hot meadow. And I didn't see it as feasible to have a combined intergenerational community center and police facility on Hop Meadow in the center town. It might be possible if the town's willing to spend enough money to buy the property to make it happen. And both Tom Taberski and Kristen Formanek very much like the idea of putting an intergenerational community center at Simsbury Farms. So, but certainly up for lots of discussion before a decision is made.
And Lee, I just want to confirm, Tom mentioned several options here for facilities upgrades. Those are going to be independent of the long term?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, they would be an intermediate
Fix.
term fix. Yeah.
Stopgap.
Yeah.
Great.
Any more questions?
But that would, sorry.
That's okay.
But the options that were presented, they wouldn't stifle the new facility, just add to it.
No, well, they,
Still plugged in.
I mean, you know, there is a possibility if we make an intermediate term fix, you know, there might be a tendency for people to say, well, we've addressed the need, you know,
Good enough.
we'll put enough for now, we'll push off the building of a new building farther down the road. That's a possibility. And it's not really, you know, the intermediate fixes are not really cost effective.
And the space is not terribly exciting.
Correct.
And it doesn't address
Yeah.
Some of the issues.
variety of
Yeah.
applications.
No, it's obviously not germane here, but I sit here and think, you know, we have 500 less students now in this town than we did 10 years ago. Why are we talking about that? I think it's a new building.
Yeah, that's a discussion for the Board of Education.
Okay, well, I won't chase that any further, but I'm concerned about the quality of this space. I realize that it's the space and it can be used. It's not cheap, and it's dollars that will be spent and could be extra if we go forward with a real facility 10 years from now. So I worry about that a little bit. I'd have to think about it a bit, but.
Right, of course.
And at this point, you know, even the sketching on that drawing in terms of where offices could be and that kind of thing, that was done internal with our engineering staff. You know, again, if the key is the bathrooms and the locker room facilities, again, we could look that if you did have the scanned documents, you may not need 1,000 square feet for records. Could something be done to work out there? And again, it would be going through another iteration. And we've been, you know, putting our resources to this, working on it, but right now, you know, this is just to get some high level, what could and couldn't be done.
It's a great idea, but it's tough. I have trouble trying to think of, you know, working without windows, or working in an interior space all the time.
That space would have the ability to have windows, but you're looking back out at the Sally Port.
Yeah, right, and the hill.
And I should say for clarification, I have not built any of these intermediate solutions into the preliminary plan. Right, there's no dollars in there. So if after further discussion, you know, you guys decide it's worth it to pursue an intermediate plan, I can plug it into the preliminary plan, or when Mark gets here, he plugs it into the final plan for discussion with the boards during the budget adoption process.
Is there anything in the budget for the records reconfiguration for the high density?
Yes, we have, what, 75,000 in the CNR for that, yeah.
We're working on one for the digitization. We're trying to figure out like some preliminary costs on that large project, not just for us, but for planning and whoever else may be able to take advantage or could use that.
More questions? Speak now for hold your peace.
Wait a minute now.
For today.
We're not going anywhere, except I am.
Yeah.
Another 3 weeks. If you have any other ideas for options for short or intermediate term solutions, you know, we're certainly willing to look at those. Tom's got a budget. you know, for architectural services, so anything else you want us to look at, just let us know, we're happy to.
Property.
I don't know how it would work, and my wife would probably know better than me, but say the plan was to go with the build new, this option 2 for Squadron Line.
Yeah.
Savings of $25 million.
Yeah.
Is there any way that money could be like, okay, we'll do that, but that $25 million payback, that's gonna go for PD to get a new facility. Is there any way to, is that a workaround, or is that something that can be written out as, if this goes through, option number 2 goes through, you get Squadron Line?
Yeah,
that money's paid back.
that's an excellent point, that's up for discussion.
Okay. I just thought that would be
Well,
something
yeah,
that can discuss.
the key is going to be when does the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance and the Board of Education decide to appropriate the money for the architectural and engineering services to do that detailed review of the options for Squadron Line, assuming everybody agrees that Squadron Line is the next school that needs to be addressed. So the sooner they do that analysis, the sooner the policy boards can make a decision about which of those options should we use for Squadron Line, and then that'll determine whether or not there are dollars left over for bonding for other big projects, like the police facility, where we've estimated $30 million for police, and we've estimated, I think, about $12 million or so for an intergenerational community center. Can you cut down that cost if you combine them into one facility? Probably. And then the question is where? Where do you put that facility? Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay, good. It all comes down to dollars and priorities,
All right. If we have no more questions, I will thank you both very much for coming and
You're welcome.
helping us this evening.
Yeah, thanks for inviting us. Enjoy the rest of your meeting.
Thank you. Well, you're going to miss all the exciting stuff now.
Oh, I know. Maybe we'll see some of you at 6 p.m.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, they're going.
Good evening.
Bust out the stacks. Okay. The next item on our agenda is correspondence. Travis, could you be so kind as to read our correspondence this evening?
December 4th, 2023, summary of letters received from business regarding Sergeant May and the Simsbury Police Department. Subject, a local business wanted to recognize Sergeant May and the Simsbury Police Department for helping them with an ongoing issue. Sergeant May was diligent in collecting as much detail as was known at the time and remained available to receive updates as they became present. Quote, we realize that your department resources are limited and demands on them are high. That said, the members of the Simsbury Police Department left us feeling confident that our concerns were professionally and swiftly addressed. End of quote. End of letters.
Thank you. That was a very nice letter. The next item on our agenda is the approval of minutes from the November 13th, 2023 meeting. Do I have a motion?
Minutes.
Second? Any discussion? All in favor of approving the minutes from the November 13th, 2023 meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Next item, Chairperson's report. I learned tentatively that Curtis Looney will be our liaison for the Police Commission. Previously, it was Sean Askham from the Board of Selectmen. They have a liaison. I texted with him, welcoming him, and I'm going to invite him to our meeting. Hopefully, he'll have the opportunity to come and see what we do.
And I'm sorry, Curtis's last name?
Looney.
Yeah.
And also, Mike is not here, but public safety, they tentatively, it's expected to be Heather Getz and Diana Geasley. And traditionally, we have had a liaison on the public safety committee. It's been Mike. I don't know if he would like to continue as our liaison or if we should have a discussion. If he doesn't, but I'll bump that to our next meeting. So keep that in mind.
Okay.
And that concludes the chairperson's report, and I will turn it over to the chief for his.
Okay, thank you. Very brief report tonight. We have the Stuff for Cruiser event coming up, December 15th and 16th It's an annual event that we have done probably since around 2000. On December 15th, it's from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. And on the following day, the 16th, it's from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And it will be at Tractor Supply on Route 10, Hot Meadow Street, up near the Granby Town Line. So hopefully you can join us. We'll be out there receiving gifts and donations to provide to not only local families here that are in need, but also to the Salvation Army. And they will then distribute those gifts and toys and donations as needed.
Change of venue.
Yes, so it's right next to Necker's. We found that there was a sort of a visibility issue and an issue with the parking. So last year we went to Tractor Supply. Before that it was at Necker's and just kind of crammed in there. It's so close to Necker's, lots of people walking over from.
I was unable to make last year's, so I didn't get the Tractor Supply piece, but I was just concerned that you have foot traffic at Necker's and making sure that it meets its way over to
Yeah,
stuff.
and it definitely did last year.
Good.
There's-
It was at the end of that parking lot,
Yeah.
so you're basically really at Necker's.
Yeah,
Yeah, as you drive into Tractor Supply, it'll be on your far left.
yeah.
And we'll have some lights there, and it'll be
Yeah.
easy for people to get over. And then the second is the almost annual skate and share event. So for decades, we've been doing a skate and share event at Simsbury Farms, which is, you bring a donated canned good of sorts for the pantry, and people get to skate. And in years past, Santa has been there, and I hear that he will be there again this year. And members from the police department will be there.
Skating.
One may be skating, two may be skating.
We don't have too many people out. There is no skating. I am putting a ban on any sworn officers.
Senior leaders, yeah.
Exactly, no skating allowed.
Maybe like a beginner skating.
Command staff will be skating.
What's the date on the skating share?
So that is December 22nd, it's a Friday. It's from 1:30 to 3:30. Kids get out of school early that day, so it's conveniently timed for that. It's in Curry Farms, December 22nd, 1:30 to 3:30. Should be a great time. I believe there's hot chocolate there and cookies and stuff, but that's all I have.
All right. The next item on the agenda are our preliminary and consolidated monthly reports. I shared mine, and then apparently I had a question. I don't know what I was talking about when I wrote it down, though. Oh, I know, I did have a question. When we have a car accident, that last line, insurance payments were received in fiscal year '23, payment on cruiser repairs.
Yes.
Can you just give me like a big broad strokes over, like, I'm driving a cruiser, I'm an officer, and I wreck it.
Yep, so we have a deductible.
Okay.
And that deductible is generally $500, and that comes out of our funded amount here. And the way it's worked with Kerma and with different repair places, it's worked differently throughout the years. And we got caught up in several accidents last year, and all the money came in, and then we were supposed to pay it out. It wasn't smooth.
Okay.
It wasn't what we were used to, so there was additional transfers of money as opposed to just us paying a $500 deductible.
Gotcha.
So we got caught up in things not being adjusted for the right year, and they're trying to fix that.
Okay.
It should be $500 coming out for each accident that the town is at fault for.
Okay. It's not too bad, looking at the eye, on the consolidated monthly report, we pulled the traffic enforcement officer before October, correct?
November 7th?
Oh, okay, so these numbers, we still had a traffic enforcement.
Yes.
Because I was really impressed that we were having such
So-
good success without a,
Yeah, so, well, we have that, and I'll pass this around here because I forgot to do this earlier. This is the one last very large budget. Police commission. So, I don't want to say it too loud, but this month and since then, our stops have been going up in certain areas, and I'm I'm glad to see that because we have had some activity that we've been putting a little bit of a press release out about, but we had some activity behind Holloways last week where some vehicles were, somebody called in, which we're looking for people to do, but there was some sort of suspicious activity happening back there. And during the investigatory phase, one person took off on foot. And we ended up catching them down the road a little bit later, but we're not sure what they were doing. And then we had a burglary also this past weekend at Mitchell Volkswagen, and then also at the gas station in front of the car dealerships there. So, for us, it's that time of year where we're going to ask people to be much more vigilant. Again, asking for people to not leave their keys or their key fobs in their cars, suggesting that they do not leave valuables, Christmas gifts in their cars, at their homes or anywhere else if they don't have to. So I'm glad to see that we're getting some more traffic stops in, especially this time of year, because I think that high visibility is really important.
I appreciate the show of force. And I had one other question. I'm just full of questions today. On the incident statistic report, do you guys take out when there's zeros? Like, I didn't have last year's to compare, or last month's, and I was like, there's no zeros. Do you just delete those because we don't have any?
So we don't delete it. This is a report that's generated by our CAD and RMS system.
So it just shows what.
It only shows when
Okay.
there's
What's
some-
populated?
Yeah. That's why I was like, wow, that's amazing. And then I thought, oh, there's something at work. Those are my questions. That's it.
What does tourism or population look like over the course of a year? Like, do our numbers start picking up during the holidays for out-of-towners to be driving through our locations, or is there any? I'm just trying to get a sense of what our population looks like for our crime statistics.
Yeah. If I were to take a guess, it probably evens out.
Yeah.
But as far as the driving activity, it definitely increases. Like if you were to look at the driving population, right now during the daytime compared to the summer, there are a lot more cars.
Significantly more,
You're
yeah.
going to see the increased delays now just traveling up and down Route 10
Yeah.
right now. Just for all the holiday related, whether it's shopping or events that are going on. So there's much more. But we have a good amount of people who go away for the holidays, other people that come in. Probably, if I was to guess, it would sort of even out. But a big concern is people leaving stuff in their cars.
Yeah. The bulk of our incidents, are they Simsbury people, or is it hard to say?
Victims or the people who were held responsible for it?
The people we are held responsible for it, or is it case by case basis here?
So it's case by case. Like it used to be breaking into cars or entering cars that were left unlocked. For decades, it was predominantly by people in town. It was viewed as a juvenile activity, especially when school was not in session, and it was clustered in neighborhoods. It wasn't all around town. That sort of changed about 5 or 6 years ago, especially the last 3 years, where it's all around town. It's not clustered anymore because people are mobile, and they're not necessarily juveniles, and they're not people from that neighborhood. So we've had several arrests. We've been fairly successful in terms of figuring out who was responsible for entering these cars or stealing cars. We've done fairly well. It's a difficult thing to do. And they've all been either an older juvenile to an adult. So it's kind of a mix. Those that, I don't know if maybe I don't think we've had anybody arrested for stealing a car in our town who lives in our town. Besides, I think we had one report that was taken without the owner's permission, and I don't believe they wanted us to move forward with that actual arrest. But there was, out of all the cars that have been stolen, that was one. Otherwise, those that we have been able to prove who was responsible for it did not leave town.
Okay.
Any other questions? In that case, we will move on to our new business, fiscal year 25 operating budget discussion. Once I figure out. Okay.
It basically looks the same, at least the police budget itself looks the same as last month. I did some minor adjustment to it, some tweaking and accuracy of some numbers. But it pretty much looks the same with the numbers on the far right. The second page will give you an idea of the reasoning for what I would consider a substantial increase or decrease compared to the current year we're in. And then I was able to include the proposed budgets for both dispatch, animal control, emergency management, and as I handed out tonight, the police commission.
I had a question on dispatch. Under, I should just put my glasses on, I'm just gonna try that. Under 53-105, technical and program support, emergency medical dispatch card set licensing.
Yes.
Those are the flip cards.
They are.
And we're not looking at the computer software, that's,
We're looking at it. It's not ready to be submitted for this current budget. We're looking anywhere from $65,000 to $80,000, and then an annual fee for that.
that made my eye twitch.
Yeah, it made mine too when I found out. So we're hoping to have access to the congressional directed spending grant again this coming March, and see if we can potentially fit that in.
Okay. The cards that, like, do they just send us new cards for new ailments?
No, they can whenever they have to update that.
Okay. I was excited to see treats on the animal control. That made me happy. I didn't know that that's always been there, but
It has, yep.
I just never noticed. Pet advertising, what is that?
So we have to advertise when a pet.
Oh, okay.
So that's not the cost of putting it on our Facebook
Ah.
page when we have found a kind of pet, but when we are trying to rehome one,
Gotcha.
or even advertise, if we're choosing the paper to advertise for a rabies clinic,
Okay.
things like that. But we're required to put something in the paper. when-
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's a little misleading as a pet.
I know. I was like,
Yeah.
what's happening? How did I not know
Yeah.
about that either?
Yeah.
Those are my questions. I don't know if either of you have any questions before we vote on the budgets.
Now, anything substantially out of whack compared to last year?
So just a major decrease in clothing and supplies. And so we've asked for the two officers, two officer positions we gained in fiscal year '22, and then the one in '23. There's a cost for those individual officers for, a new radio, all this equipment. And so when those were approved, that money was known and set aside. And instead of dumping that into all the respective accounts for that, finance puts it in there. So we're not asking for officers next year, so we have decreased that significantly. Some of those expenses we have been able to use already, like a new radio. But we've not been able to spend the money for uniforms because we haven't been able to fill those positions yet. So some of it was left over in this year's, and we're hoping to be able to fill those spots this year. But that's the only one that shows a significant decrease that I thought.
And then, we've talked about this before, but if you can give it to us again here, that is, like, total budget, the increase is less than 3%. When we look at inflation, that's actually below, 3% should be about the inflation rate, but it's below the inflation rate.
Yes.
How do we tackle pay over the long term and make sure that officers are getting appropriate increases to match, inflation?
Yep, yeah, it's a great question and great conversation. It just so happens that the police officer contract expires in June of next year. So this budget only includes the internal step increases. It does not include any GWI. So that's why it's so low, because we have 18 or 19 people who are at a fixed rate now, and they will be next year unless there's a contractual, negotiated GWI.
Okay.
So the 88,000, almost 89,000 full-time is the increase in the steps for all those officers who are stepping, for the 1 or 2 at admin, records, and my administrative assistant who are stepping, and then also the 2 new positions that we put in for also. So that conversation is more of a negotiating conversation to have.
Yeah, okay. And then I'm not familiar necessarily across the country with police pay, but is there any kind of an ability for you to provide spot bonuses to the force? And is that something in the future that could be looked at, like just as an incentive for an attractive feature for people to, hey, want to stay on the force? Or is it totally out of the scheme of police pay?
It's not common.
Trying to do
I
it
just
for
know that-
hires, but not for
Yeah, I know that-
longevity.
Yeah.
And that's the challenge. You see new hires, you're giving bonuses, or other towns are doing that. But what about the folks that have already been there for numbers of years and not getting any kind of a plus up? There's a disparity there. So I'm just looking for an answer to maybe introduce some sort of way to incentivize people through pay, which isn't the only solution, but it is certainly a solution. Yeah.
Typically, so the unions, that's, kind of goes against what, you can't
Yeah, I get you.
highlight one person as opposed to the group of individuals. So, is that what you're talking about, like, officer, X, Y, and Z did a great job, so we're gonna give them a bonus, is that what you're?
Yeah, exactly. And I know that's counter to, but same with offering spot or
Right.
promotion hiring bonuses. That's
Right.
that the time to think outside of the box is years ago now. No.
So that's one of the challenges that we face, is how do you, reward, the employee who's going above and beyond, or just, say the lowest
Yeah.
common denominator
Yeah.
employee. Typically, you try and do that through, giving training or increased opportunities for doing, trying to reward them in different ways.
Pearl handle
But it's
pistol works
not,
pretty well too.
But typically we can't, monetarily do anything.
Yeah.
So
Great. Okay.
All right. Any other questions? Do you know the date of when that contract negotiations for are we waiting until Mark Nelson?
I believe we're waiting until March, yeah,
And his start date is
January 8th.
Okay.
Now, were we included on that, or is that something gets reported back, or how does that? How do the kind of combat
I can
contracts?
tell you the process later.
Okay.
Let's get through the budget, because I know we have to get to the,
Swearing in.
that's the word I'm looking for. So, can we approve these all in one shot, or do I go do each one? I'm gonna do each one just to make sure that I dot my i's and cross my t's. So, I will take a motion, or I make a motion to approve the Simsbury Police Department fiscal year 25 proposed police operating budget summary. Do I have a second? All in favor of approving the Simsbury Police Department fiscal year 25 proposed police operating budget, say aye.
Aye.
I make a motion to approve the fiscal year 25 proposed dispatch operating budget. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I move to approve the fiscal year 25 proposed animal control budget. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I move to approve the fiscal year 25 proposed police commission budget. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Oh my gosh, I mean a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Emergency management.
I'll know where that one went. Please hold. I make a motion to approve the fiscal year 25 proposed emergency management budget. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Any others that were stuck together? Oh, yeah, they were stuck together. They were both green. My bad. Goodness gracious. All right, any other new business? Any old business? In that case, any commentary?
None.
Mhm.
Thank you.
In that case, I move to adjourn our December 4th, 2023 regular meeting at 5:50 PM. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.